This Week in Agribusiness, serving America's most essential industry. With agriculture broadcasters Orion Samuelson and Max Armstrong. And featuring agriculture meteorologist Greg Soye. This Week in Agribusiness is brought to you by Pioneer. Proud to work with farmers in the most complex and rewarding industry on earth.
Coming up on this weekend's broadcast, anticipation of the possible changes in Washington. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this weekend's visit here on This Week in Agribusiness. I'm alongside Mr. Pearson. Proudly, I say.
Absolutely. We're glad to have you here in person, Mr. Armstrong. And, you mentioned we've got things happening in Washington, D.C. This might be a quiet period for growers, but not for politicians.
Well, it's remarkable watching the farm organizations react to the changes that they see taking shape. And they were piling on with their kudos this week when they saw the possibility that Tom Vilsack might be back.
That's right. Former Secretary of Agriculture served the full term under President Obama, both terms rather, and former governor of Iowa, seen as kind of a conciliation pick by the incoming Biden administration.
Also, he's had experience in writing a farm bill. That may mean something.
That's true. That will be in our spotlight very shortly.
Generation Z. You're not in that bunch, that's for sure.
I'm not. I'm a much maligned millennial.
Oh, yeah, one of those. Generation Z, ages 7 to 22. They are coming at us. And Dr. Leah Dorman, who is a veterinarian living on a farm in Ohio, says we need to pay attention to those young people. In fact, I noted in my visit with her, she has some of those in her household. She's a mom.
I am a mom, and I happen to raise 3 Gen Zers. So I've got a little experience talking with them a bit.
Who is Generation Z? Help us identify this particular, some of us boomers look back and say, X, Y, Z, what does it matter? Generation Z, that's a young bunch right now.
It is a young bunch. These are I'm going to call them kids. I'll probably get in trouble for that later, but these are the kids that are born in the mid to late 90s to the early 2010s. So this is a group of people that are ages anywhere from about 7 to 22.
They can't buy cars. They can't buy, mostly won't be buying cars. Some will. They don't buy homes, generally don't buy refrigerators. Why do they matter?
Not yet. They're our future. They are our future. And remember, they also compose about close to 25% of the U.S. population. So that's a quarter. It's a quarter of our population. So we better be paying attention to them, what they're thinking, and also what they care about.
Especially the low end of that spectrum. It reminds me, they are at those stages of life where they can really soak up stuff, get opinions. Some of those are erroneous opinions. It's important to get them set straight, isn't it?
Absolutely. I don't think it's just even the younger ends, that those 21, 22-year-olds, many of them probably in college, some out in the workforce, but I think they're still impressionable and really kind of getting set, if you will, in their ways. And maybe they'll never be entirely set in their ways, but they're getting set and gathering information and forming their opinions also.
So how should agriculture interact with these folks? One thing I think of immediately, of course, that I'm a big supporter of is ag in the classroom, getting information into the classroom about how crops and livestock are produced. But what are other things that producers should be thinking about?
Yeah, well, I think there's a couple things to keep in mind when you're interacting, first of all, and that is this is a group that spends a fair amount of time a day online. So they're on their phones, they're in the social media realm, they're in apps, they're Snapchatting, they're doing all sorts of things that we never heard of as kids. So I know that makes us old. I just aged myself, but they're spending a fair amount of time online. And so we need to reach them where they're looking for information and where they're spending time. So that's the first thing. Second of all, they not only want transparency, they demand it. And that's a perfect opportunity for us as farmers, as producers, as ranchers to really be able to reach out and tell our story and talk about what we do, and more importantly, why. Why do we do it? That is one thing that this generation in particular, they figured it out, Max. They figured out that they can, I don't want to say control the world, but they can help make changes happen by their credit card, by the almighty dollar. So they have figured out that they can use their credit card to make changes happen.
We appreciate you spending a little time to talk with us, Dr. Dorman, from Fibro Animal Health and from the farm in Ohio. We sure appreciate it.
Thank you.
Dr. Leah Dorman.
Well, we've got to talk the markets. And on Thursday, USDA released their December World Agricultural Supply and Demand Outlook. The December report's not usually one watched closely by the markets, but this year was a little different. To help us make sense, Jim McCormick from agmarket.net is here. And Jim, what were the highlights from this December supply and demand report?
Well, I think the highlight was nothing happened. I mean, in a crazy year 2012, Mike, which usually seemed like everything went weird and the unexpected happened, we got what we normally would get. We got very, very little adjustments. They raised the bean crush by 15 million bushels. They left the corn number pretty much unchanged, made a little bit of adjustments in the wheat. So in general, this was a snoozer report. I'd say they kicked the can down to January, but that is historically what they do.
And it's historically what they do, but this year we were expecting something more because there has been such a lack of information due to COVID, due to all the craziness this year. How have traders responded to a ho-hum January report? Not moving soybeans, I'm guessing that's a bearish sentiment.
Well, right now, it's interesting how we're kind of going into what happened in this report. The big thing was last month, the government lowered the production of the beans. They left demand unchanged. Our exports, we've sold 88% of what we're expected to sell. Normally we're around 65%. So when you look at that number, you're like, man, they've gonna have to raise that export number. They didn't, not again. So I think that's gonna put pressure on in January. They are gonna have to raise that export number because the fact of the matter is there's just no beans available. Right now, if you are a bean buyer in the world and you need beans, you got to get them from us because Brazil doesn't have any beans available to maybe late February, more like March.
So that's pretty incredible, and we've definitely seen that rally take place. We've seen growers certainly taking advantage of it. Given the fact that USDA changed nothing in December, how should growers handle their soybean marketing as we get through the remainder of this season?
Well, right now, I think you got to look at your profitability. If you're profitable, I'm encouraging people to go ahead and move it. You're not seeing a big carry in the market. The basis is strong. And then use like options to re-own it. I do think, and our group does believe it's worthwhile maintaining some ownership. You're looking at stocks to use right now at about 4.2%. If you raise this demand a little bit more, you get that carry out down to 150 million, you're looking at stocks use below 4%. That'd be some of the tightest stocks use we've ever had in ending stocks. Historically, when we've been this tight, you've seen beans trade in the teens, plain and simple.
And that's just domestic. We've also got dryness down in Brazil and Argentina. I mean, what's your thoughts here as we get into the first quarter of 2021, right?
I think the market could get very exciting, especially Argentina. Historically, La Nina years really caused problems in southern Brazil and Argentina. The government did raise the crush, but that may be partly because they're looking at Argentina's dryness. Argentina sells the products, Brazil sells the beans. So if Argentina doesn't have the beans to produce, guess what? They're not going to meal, and that demand's going to come our way.
Now, we also saw the USDA raise domestic crush, and that's something that shouldn't be terribly surprising. The crush has been very strong. As you look out, do you figure that strength is going to continue even with beans priced where they are?
I think you will see it right now because of the demand is out there on the export side of the equation. We are seeing demand out there, so I think that will do it. The corn number is going to be a little bit interesting. The corn demand, we're still ahead of pace, not quite as stout percentage-wise, but I think overall that corn demand is also going to continue to raise.
All right, so these are things we're going to be keeping an eye on. And Jim, we've got a lot more to discuss when it comes to breaking down this supply and demand report. We'll talk corn, we'll talk wheat. All of those have interesting stories that we'll dig into in a little bit more detail right after this. This portion of This Week in Agribusiness is brought to you by the Soybean Checkoff. Tips, videos, how-tos, and more. If it has to do with ag tech, you'll find it in the Tech Tool Shed, your unbiased one-stop resource. And let's talk corn. That market has also been on fire since really combines got running. Any big surprises from the USDA on corn?
Well, right now the USDA left everything unchanged, which is what we would expect, but there's some things that we're looking at down the line. The export pace is still way ahead of the 5-year average. And China is still the big driver. The USDA left China demand at about 13 million metric tons. Our account is they've already bought probably close to 20 million metric tons. The FSA attachés put their demand at 22 million metric tons. And then on top of it, the private sector thinks it could be as high as 30 million metric tons. So there is some demand out there. And what's exciting is for the American producers, there's not a lot of competition. If you look, our total supply right now, Mike, compared to where it was a year ago, in the world, we're down about 12 million metric tons because of smaller crops in Europe. So if you need grain, corn specifically, until we get that South American crop, and more likely their second crop, harvested in July, there's only one big store in town, it's the United States.
But there is some competition, at least domestically, from crops like sorghum. We've seen China step in as they're trying to fill their coffers. They've bought some sorghum as well. What does that mean for the market?
Well, here's what's interesting. The sorghum market's on fire. If you're a producer of sorghum, congratulations. You're making a lot of money this year. Now, I know you've had your down years. This year's definitely a payday year. But what's made it interesting is those ethanol plants that usually are fed by sorghum, they're switching over to corn. So our corn demand is down for the ethanol because, unfortunately, we're not driving due to the pandemic. And hopefully that gets better as we get into the second quarter, third quarter of 2021. But what's interesting, Mike, is that grain, sorghum's being replaced by corn. And that could add roughly 85 million bushels annually of corn demand that you normally would not expect going to that sector. So even though our ethanol corn demand is going to be down, it's probably not going to be down as much as you feared if you just based on the annual ethanol production.
All right. Well, one of the markets that has certainly been trading in concert with corn and soybeans, but hasn't really had much of a story of its own, is the wheat market. We've talked dryness, but now it seems wheat's kind of catching fire.
Wheat is caught a bit. Wheat was kind of just almost a laggard. It's starting to get its own story. We're dry in the United States. We're dry in Russia. Earlier this morning, Putin's talking about food inflation. And when he starts talking about food inflation, you start wondering, is there just the next step that they're going to start trying to ration exports to try to control food prices domestically? Then on top of it, you've got China again. China's in a little political spat with the Australians. So they're no longer buying the Australian wheat, they're buying our white wheat. So now we're getting wheat sold to the Chinese that we normally don't sell. So you got China buying beans, you got them buying corn, you got them buying beef. It's an exciting time. This phase one deal, it took a while to kick in, but it definitely seems like they're needing it. And I know the big question is, will they cancel it? If you look at their prices of what's going on over there, they need it. I don't see any cancellations, maybe some token ones here or there, but in general, I think they need every bushel and every pound they're buying.
Well, and speaking of pounds, one of the places we've definitely seen China on the international stage is buying protein, both pork and beef. On the beef side specifically, they've typically done a lot of business with Australia. It sounds like that door is shut. Is that business going to come to us?
I think it will. Some of it will come to us. We do continue to sell beef, but we do have some competition in South America. They will sell it to them a little bit cheaper. But it's the same story, though. If South America is ramping up their beef production to meet that Chinese demand, guess what? They don't have as much feed grains to sell to the international market. So it all comes full circle. So if the Chinese are buying their beef, that might force some buyers of Brazilian beans and corn to come to the United States because the supplies are tightening.
They are, and similar to pork, do you see that rallying into the first quarter of 2021?
Well, the pork right now, I think, is going to struggle a little bit at this point in time. The big thing with pork is we're just trying to see how quick China can rebuild their stocks. But overall, I think you got to be optimistic going to 2021. As we get through this shots, the demand's there.
Thank you, Jim. Jim McCormick, agmarket.net.
Chad Colby's look at agriculture technology comes your way next, brought to you by the IBM Watson Decision Platform. Combining AI with Internet of Things data to help agribusiness increase yields, improve quality, and drive sustainability. Do you need to upgrade your computer? Chad Colby is thinking about that this weekend. I did a bunch of that in 2020 because of Windows 7. Let's see what kind of guidance Colby brings us here at the end of the year.
Are you thinking about upgrading your computer in your home or office? Hi, everyone. I'm Chad Colby. This is our final tech segment before Christmas. And what a treat do I have for you. I will tell you, over the last several weeks, I've probably got at least a dozen inquiries about people upgrading their computers. What do I buy? What do I do? It's a little more confusing maybe today than it was 4 or 5 years ago. 4 or 5 years ago, the decision was, do I want a big tower computer or a laptop? When you walk into your favorite computer store today, you're going to see that the majority of the computers are laptop-based, or they might even be an all-in-one where it's the screen and computer integrated as one device. Before you go, make sure you define what you're going to do with the computer. Here at my desk, you can see I've got a MacBook right here. It's got cords going in either side, and each of those are running their own independent monitor. All three of these screens operate together. These are 29-inch 5K monitors. Now for me, I do a lot of video editing, and you can see I've got a video editor here. I've got email, social media, those kind of things running. I got a spreadsheet down here. I got a lot of things happening. But if I was doing it today, I don't think it'd look like this. You can now buy some pretty neat curved, big, narrow, wide monitors. And a few of the people I talked to, that was the direction they were going to go, just from a space standpoint. Maybe you're just looking at files all day from maybe Microsoft Office, and you've got Excel and Word documents up and email up. A lot of us, that's our primary function. You can buy a lot of computer for the money today. In that $300 to $800 range, you can buy computers like this. This Sony PC right here, it's got a touch screen, it's a great machine. I've got some projects that I need a PC for, and that's why you see that sitting here at my desk. The other thing I want to caution you on is those printers. Printers have changed so much. We've all been down this road. This is that road of $50, $80 ink cartridges. It's pretty annoying when you spend $200 for the machine and you're spending $150 to go buy ink. Listen, the manufacturers have done a better job with that, and you can see that. They've got ink cartridges now that you can reload yourself at 50% of the money, maybe even less than that. Do your homework before you go, but know this. What you buy in a computer today is going to be so much better than what it was 4 or 5 years ago. And for those of you fans of Apple products, make sure you check out the new Apple. It's called the M1 processor. It is a big deal, and we're going to be using that for years to come. With that, I appreciate you joining us all year talking about these amazing new pieces of technology, and I wish each and every one of you a very blessed holiday season. And when you see some of that new technology under the tree, maybe for your son or daughter, go check it out, because some of that technology might be able to help you as well.
Merry Christmas to you, Chad. I could have used your guidance earlier this year, as a matter of fact. I guess if I'd called him, he would have told me.
It's always good to have experts to turn to when you're talking agriculture and technology. We've got experts on forage harvesting. Stay tuned for more from the Farm Progress Virtual Experience.
Well, I know many of you like books about agriculture history. I do too. And I've only ever written the foreword for 3 books. One was The Revision of Red Tractors by Lee Clouncher, and then Corn Cribs and Corn Pickers by Bob and Phyllis Johnson. Bob, welcome in here.
Well, thank you for having me.
I was proud to have a very minor role, very, very minor, because you and Phyllis did such extensive research on these books. And I want to talk a little bit about them. First of all, you came out with the Corn Pickers, 2 volumes.
Yes, it originally was 1 volume, 804 pages. You know, Phyllis really did a great job of finding lots of information, so that's why it ended up being 804 pages. But we had complaints of being too heavy, especially the older farmers. They said they want to sit in their chair and read it, so. And the publisher suggested 2 right away, but we had friends who thought 1 would be nice, but we finally went to 2 volumes, and we've had some
Hold one of those up so you folks can see it. It's a beautiful cover. You can see the ears of corn there that are falling down into the wagon, and turn it just a little bit over this way here. There you go.
You know, we didn't want to put just one brand of picker in the front, so we just kind of want to just...
How many were featured in there?
Well, over 70, I would say.
And
different
there were
models, you know, different companies. But
many minor companies manufactured corn pickers.
Well, we found companies that nobody's ever heard of before. I mean, they came out with a picker, thought they had something, and, you know, I was fortunate to find information on it. I mean, I've had people come to me and says, Bob, we've seen pickers there we've never seen before. So, and I think we got them all. Book's been out at least 3 years, and we haven't found another corn picker manufacturer yet. So we're happy with that.
And it's not just about the equipment. Your title says, and the people who dreamed them up, the inventors who dreamed them up. There were some very creative minds, weren't there?
Yes, there were. And Phyllis did a great job of researching the inventors, because they struggled. I mean, a lot of guys used all their money to come up with a corn picker. I mean, the first invention came out, or first patent was in the 1850s, but looks nothing like the corn picker we have now. It wasn't until like the mid-1870s it started to look like what we have now as a picker, and then the first successful ones weren't until the late 1890s.
So they had a snout on them in
Yes.
the 1870s,
Yes.
going down between the rows.
Right.
My father always talked about picking corn by hand. He had the husking peg.
Yep.
In fact, I still have his husking peg. I think I've shared that with you in the past. Boy, these were quite an advance, weren't
Oh,
they?
gosh, yes. I mean, Dad didn't mind picking corn by hand because he was good at it, but he said it was tough to pick corn by hand when your neighbor had a corn picker, so he was...
I bet it was.
Yeah.
And then your book, Corn Cribs. Every Corn Belt farm had one. And
Yes.
these provided a home, a storehouse for the crop, a place to put it away and,
Yes.
and have it for safekeeping. But they were often more than that. They weren't just a place sometimes to store the corn. It helped dry the corn.
You dried the corn, and then some of the cribs had overhead storage for, oats or small grain. And then, of course, when the corn crib was being used, it was a great place to store maybe your picker or the wagons.
Some people actually lived in them, didn't they? Weren't there living quarters above them in some instances?
I think we heard of one, yes, but not too much.
I was aware of some. Now, some were very ornate.
Oh, yes.
Very solid construction.
In fact, you know what? Ever since the book came out, we've received 2 pictures, one just a couple of days ago with very unique corn cribs. I mean, we wish they were in the book. It's frustrating. And like the corn picker book, we think we got the corn pickers, but with corn cribs, there was so many small line companies that made it. I'm sure we missed a few. And I'm disappointed that we couldn't include some of these new pictures that just showed up. Beautiful artwork of cribs.
Some are still standing out across the countryside in the heart of America, but many have disappeared. Many are in a state of disrepair. The thing I like is you captured them before they got away from us.
Yes, we've been doing this for 20 years. I mean, we were only going to do the corn picker book, but traveling around the country, we were amazed by the different types of corn cribs out there. And then we noticed, too, how carpenters in areas will build their style of crib. I even noticed that on our tractor rides. We also included, too, the inside cup elevators. We thought that'd be important. And John Deere was good about when they sold their inside cup elevator, they also gave you free blueprints to make your crib.
Really? That's interesting. Now, some of these cribs were prefab. I mean, you could order a kit.
Yeah,
correct?
oh yeah, Sears had a kit. I think Montgomery Ward's had a kit that you could make your
Montgomery
own.
Ward's
yes,
had a
they
corn crib kit.
Yes, we have Montgomery Ward's farm catalog at home, and there's corn cribs there that you could build yourself.
Let's give your website before people forget it and before I forget it. How do they find out? How do they order the book? And maybe give you some feedback if they have knowledge about corn cribs or corn pickers.
We would love that. It's simply cornpickerbook.com, and that's for both books. Just to keep our life simple. We're a small mom and pop operation. And if they want to call me, I don't mind. It's 815-761-3709.
Cornpickerbook.com. Now, we think of the Corn Belt of the United States, but were some of these structures, some of these corn cribs outside of the heart of the United States? Did
Yes.
some wind up on the coast, for example, or in the southeast?
We didn't go too far west, but we did go east, and we found some unique cribs out there. I mean, Phyllis has family in Connecticut, and it's 1,000 miles. Coming home one time, we added another 500 miles to our trip just looking for cribs, and we did find some unique ones. We were in your area a little bit a while back, before the book.
Well, you're always looking for pickers and cribs, and you've done such a great job in categorizing these all together. Congratulations again to you and Phyllis. Cornpickerbook.com, right,
That's
Bob?
right.
Great to see you.
Thank you.
Bob Johnson. Bob Johnson, he and his wife Phyllis authored the book Corn Cribs and Corn Pickers, and you can get more information at cornpickerbook.com. There's more coming up on this weekend's edition of This Week in Agribusiness. We'll show you modern equipment, very modern, as we continue the Farm Progress Virtual Experience reports. Stay with us.
This Week in Agribusiness, serving America's most essential industry, is brought to you by ADM.
Welcome back to This Week in Agribusiness. In agriculture, everybody's looking for an arrangement that works for them. And Max, you had the chance to sit down with 2 guys who work together, even though they're not family.
Yeah, they're neighboring farmers, and their partnership works well, we found. As a matter of fact, Mike, we visited the other day with Jim Brown and Denny Uphoff on their farming operation near the town of Beeson, Illinois, where there's a lot of cooperation going on. How far back does it go, and how did it start, this cooperation between the two of you? Actually, believe it or not, I have seen this in a couple of other instances, and I'm always amazed at how well it works.
Well, we've just known each other a long time since I got out of college in 1980.
Is there ever a time when you guys have a disagreement? I mean, it almost sounds like a family relationship here.
He calls me names every now and then, but, and generally, no, it's a good working relationship. And again, as we say, it's not totally integrated.
Talk a bit about working with BASF, and do you really rely heavily upon advice from the company as you're looking at your cropping program?
I think the proper term is innovation specialist. We're good friends to begin with, and so he'll come to me with, have you ever thought about this? Maybe you want to try this. That's how we got started with the Revitec and Veltima trials.
One thing about that with, at least on the corn side, with the Veltima product, it has a much wider application window. Last year, I say we just had that small trial, but this year we sprayed all of our products when we first started seeing tassel rather when the field was in full tassel.
So even going a little bit earlier, you found it still works just fine.
Absolutely. I mean, it used to be they would say you would go from VT or tassel stage to brown silk. Now, BASF will tell you that still the best, most effective time is at VT. But if we can apply that right at VT or a few days prior to, I think we get that protection, and the residual, the staying power of that product will take us right on through and keep that plant healthier for a longer period of time.
Give me your overall view of the future of agriculture, and how do you look at the future ahead over the next decade?
Maybe a beach in Florida, I don't know. Just kidding.
I do think we're going to continue to see consolidation, farm size with technology, larger equipment. That's just going to continue. And I also think you're going to see more farmers, smaller, mid-sized farmers sharing equipment and trying to reduce those capital costs and spread costs over more acres.
Excellent. Yeah, I like to think that the way we partner with everything has been helpful to both of our bottom lines and both of our yields.
Those visits are a delight for us, to be sure. You can get more on that visit, see more of it, and get more information at the website, plansmartgrowsmart.com. Now, agriculture meteorologist Greg Solier brings us his farm weather forecast for the nation for the week ahead. It's presented by Pivot BioProven, the nitrogen-producing microbes that stay put, whether or not.
Well, Greg, we are getting deep into this La Nina season, seeing some relief across the country, some fast-moving systems. Is that going to come to the Pacific Northwest?
Well, it continues on, but it's just been a very modest improvement to the overall expansive dryness and drought-related picture across the western states. What is it? Some 80% of roughly from the divide on westward is some sort of categorical drought. So improvement of late, Willamette Valley, Rogue River Basin, not much to write home about. These systems continue to zip along. Pretty quiet weather picture even for mid-December back into the northern plains. Once again, they're fast moving. You get this fast moving west to east zonal flow. You need the dip in the jet. You need cold air here to bank up across the northern and central Rockies. Then we'll get some moisture going. But don't see it this week, although a little better opportunity for a couple of showers, Northern California and to parts of the Pacific Northwest later in the week. Not much going on December style into the northern parts of the Plains States region as well. You've seen this before, last week and the week before, offshore flow, fire potential, still Southern California. That's going to be with you all wintertime season. Very quiet weather picture. Temperatures back to more seasonal norms. Central and southern areas, the winter wheat belt coming off the 60s and 70s and near 80-degree warmth last week. Not great with dryness and drought in mind, and no improvement here with that in mind for the middle late portions of the week. Same with the southwest, little change into the valleys of California.
And now, Greg, this past week saw some recharge events across the central part of the country. Is that going to continue?
Amazing we're talking about that. That's testimony there's hardly any frost or freeze in the ground. So yeah, we melt down the snow, a couple of 3 or 4 inches in this corridor from the weekend system, an 1.5 inches of rain in some areas of the Corn Belt, back into a more typical mid-December chill. not cold, chill, and a fast-moving feature across the northern and central plains. Anemic moisture amounts here that blows on by. We get another weather system across the northern plains, and with that, a warm front to push on by, and another flood of Pacific air. Great outdoor work environments, but little, if any, organized moisture expected across the plains here, middle to late portions of the week. Quiet weather picture across the Rio Grande, areas of the deep south as well. Temperatures back to more seasonal norms, and just a weak weather system that may generate a couple of spotty showers. Nothing to improve the drought pattern here over the late portions of the week as well.
Well, take us up the Ohio River Valley into the northeast. What do you expect?
That Corn Belt weather system continues to blow out to sea out of the northeast of New England. Again, this is a dry and drought-ridden corridor as well. A typical December feel back across the areas of the Corn Belt, high pressure and control. A couple of rain, snow showers. Western Corn Belt that moves up to the Canadian Prairie. Replaced another weak weather system. A warm front, milder air back to above average temperature readings across many areas of the Corn Belt. Pretty quiet weather picture for the northeast and New England as well for the middle to late portions of the week. The southeast behind the 8 ball still with the last of harvest operations. Cooler, drier air at least though moves back in for the early parts of the week. Weak weather system, southern sections of the plains will blow on by quickly. Back into dry time opportunities to play catch up with fall field work over the southeast later in the week.
Now, Greg Soye is back with his extended farm weather forecast for the country. Presented by Pivot Bio Proven. Visit pivotbio.com to find a representative near you.
Greg, I've been talking to a lot of cattle producers, and they've appreciated the dry fall and winter and getting out there and working with their livestock. As you look out to this week ahead, what's the precipitation forecast look like?
Again, a pretty good setup if that is all you have up your sleeve here regarding outdoor work and ag-related duties, tending to livestock, movement of feed and supplies, footing issues. But dryness and drought, a different story. Little to none. The heart of the drought area back over the southwestern part of the country, there may be 1 inch to 3 inches of moisture cascades on westward, some snow across the peaks of the northern Rockies, and a little spotty moisture, and we'll take a dry week in this part of the country. Not much to speak of as well coming off the weekend snow and rain system of great benefit to the Corn Belt areas, again, just a couple of days ago.
And next week, of course, winter solstice as well as Christmas. What are you expecting?
So far, so good with temperature in mind as we head on through the official start to the wintertime season. Look at this flood of milder Pacific air. There's no snow on the ground, bare grounds as well, so we'll reap the benefits of maybe some record-setting warm, a bit on the cool side over the southeastern part of the country. Temperatures about normal in the Pacific Northwest, where the moisture pattern is of great benefit here. Parts of northern California, nothing going on. Valleys of the California region, as we move into the plain states, it is high and dry as well. Maybe a little sliver of moisture with a northeastern weather system, so above average moisture either side of the country, dry right up the middle.
What do you see as 2021 gets underway?
And as we move on through the holiday season, not too much to worry about or complain about here. Temperatures returning back to more seasonal norms for early January. Much of the northern plains, areas of the Great Lakes, back into northern California. Look at the warmth. The Ohio Valley, southeastern part of the country, and a little dipsy-do in the jet stream pattern here with some cooler air for the northern Rockies and Pacific Northwest. So we pick up some moisture farther south, parts of the Black Hills, Big Sky into northern California. We shift some of the driest weather into the southern plains, and this is okay down here. Back to dry time over the Ohio Valley. Normal precip for the upper Midwest, maybe some snowfall as well into the northeast of New England, so some general drought improvement expected there.
Now, what are you seeing as we get into the first full week of 2021?
Again, a little bit late in arriving. Hopefully that does not mean a protracted winter season, but here's some of this cold. Again, it's a very fast wind current, typically strong in the wintertime, but accelerating in a La Nina setup. So we get these lobes of cold air to race across the northern interior states. Not much for now. Southward penetration. The warmth continues on. Southwestern part of the country, southern plains into the delta and southeastern part of the country, but you get that wide contrast to temperature, kind of a slow sinking southward of the main jet stream pattern. So we begin to finally see the arrival of winter weather systems. They continue on into the northern parts of the Rockies, more so to the northern plains, the northern and central areas of the Corn Belt beginning to see and the look and feel of wintertime for a change into the northeast of New England. The dry time continues over the southeastern part of the country, southern plains as well. Watch for an expansion of dryness and drought in the southeast as the season wears on.
Next on This Week in Agribusiness, it's Max's Tractor Shed, spotlighting another great American tractor.
Well, you hear of people who continue to work in their retirement. We have some tractors that do the same thing. It's another weekend featuring auger tractors. It's brought to you by Store-Lock Tool Cabinets. They are truly the best quality tool cabinet you'll ever buy. Check out their wide array of cabinets and great looking cabinets at StoreLock.com. Well, back in the fall, I said, yeah, show me your auger tractor. We've been getting plenty of them, including this beautiful shot in the snow. Eric Totemeyer at Columbus Junction, Iowa, said to me, yeah, Max, I think you will appreciate the fact that I do have something red working on the auger there. A Farmall 806. And in Ontario, Canada, Les Douglas backed up this real nice Case 970 demonstrator. They restored it about 3 years ago, so it stands tall for the job there on the auger. And bringing plenty of power also to its role out there at the grain bins, here's a Ford TW30. Belongs to Alex Kerr. Yeah, that tractor is all dualed up for the job to help it hold its stance on the auger there. About 150 horsepower on the auger at Mount Sterling, Illinois. Well, there are always some interesting tractors and other equipment crossing the block at Big Iron Auctions. Let's check in with Mark Stock for his weekend report.
Well, happy holidays, everybody. Max, we've got over 8,000 items selling from 800 different sellers, 31 different states, rounding out the remainder auctions on BigIron.com here in December. A featured seller for December 16th includes Brooksfield Farms out of Ray, North Dakota. They've got a John Deere 6170 mechanical front tractor with a loader in 573 hours. They've got a John Deere 4930 self-propelled sprayer with 1,180 hours, a John Deere 4020 power shift, and a John Deere DB60 36-row 20-inch planter, plus other items. We'll have 15 retirement sales on December 16th, all across the Midwest, including Bob and Connie Safely, Linden, Iowa. They've got a 2366 combine. Clevenger Farms from Rochester, Illinois. They've got super sharp Case IH equipment. Peterson Farms from Montrose, South Dakota. They have a 2388 combine, 7140, 806, and 1086 tractors. Randall and Karen West from Colony, Kansas. They have a Massey Ferguson tractor, a versatile four-wheel drive, and a late model Massey Ferguson combine. Richard Waxweiler is from Matador, North Dakota. He's got an Apache 715 self-propelled sprayer and Case IH combines and tractors. And Tyler Kelchin from Dundee, Iowa. They are retiring. They've got a Magnum 215, an MX 270, and others. Good quality equipment selling with no reserve on BigIron.com.
The FFA Chapter Tribute is sponsored by Nationwide, the #1 farm insurer in the country. To register your FFA chapter, go to nationwidesupportsffa.com. That's nationwidesupportsffa.com. Nationwide. We stand for you.
Our FFA Chapter Tribute continues spotlighting the members of the National FFA team. This week we're talking to David Lopez Larios, the Western Region Vice President. David, the Western Region, you guys are a big space with a lot of interesting agriculture. What do you bring to the National FFA?
Right. Well, first of all, thank you for having me today. When we think about the West, we think of a different couple of things. I know whenever I personally think of California, I think of an urban setting, which is really interesting when we think of how that plays into the agriculture industry, seeing how much we've moved into urban agriculture while still staying traditional to those agriculture roots found in rural parts of California. With that in mind, besides all our commodities, we bring an exciting spirit when it comes to the National FFA organization, one that talks about inclusion and diversity and equity for all students from all backgrounds, whether that is a rural town or coming into more of the urban parts of our Western region. But with that in mind, the Western region's excited to be represented and have a good year this year.
Absolutely. And David, let's talk about your upbringing in FFA. How long have you been a member?
I've been a member now for, I think, 6 years. I lose track, but I started my freshman year of high school.
Fantastic. And as you get through college, you want to stay in agriculture as a career?
Yeah, so I struggled with that a little bit. I was trying to figure out what it really was that I wanted to do, and something that I've always known is that I wanted to be a difference maker. Unfortunately, in FFA, I've been able to do that. It's given me many avenues to take on leadership roles and try to make a positive difference in the lives of others. And as I move on into a career, I hope to do the same. As of right now, I'm thinking going into law, especially immigration, and looking at how we can better the life of all agriculturalists in our areas.
Fantastic. Well, David Lopez Larios, we wish you the best as This Week in Agribusiness salutes the National FFA.
Now, Samuelson Says. Insight and commentary from Orion Samuelson.
I've shared a lot of my personal thoughts with you for these years, but I have a few more I want to do before I bring to an end a 60-year career of talking agriculture for the world and for the nation and for our farmers and ranchers and for our consumers. First of all, I want to say thank you for the mail I'm getting from all of you, and I hope you will understand that I'm not going to have the time to answer the emails and the letters personally. But I do appreciate hearing from you, and the reason I do is because of the suggestions you make and the questions you ask. For example, I'm getting emails now wondering if we're going to do a Christmas show from a country church this year. And you know the answer. Because of COVID-19, we'll not be able to go to a country church to feature it on our program. And then the other subject I wanted to bring up is your letter writing, because you send me so many ideas that I appreciate, and they have included some gifts like this one. Some of you know this is a slow-moving vehicle emblem to be placed on slow-moving farm equipment on rural roads and highways. But you've heard me complain about the fact that too many people use this emblem on their mailbox or their driveway so they can easily see it at night. Well, now I have my own slow-moving vehicle emblem, thanks to one of you, and I'll cherish it and keep it forever. More to come in the next weeks of this year. Be safe, be well. My thoughts on Samuelson Says.
Coming up, we'll take a look at the Case IH windrower from the Farm Progress Show virtual experience.
The Farm Progress virtual experience was way back in the summer, but it lives on.
It certainly does, Max, and hay season might be done for folks across the country, but the Case IH windrower is ready for you next year. Let's take a look at what was presented at the Farm Progress virtual experience.
The Case IH WD2504 windrower with the RD163 header. Case IH WD4 Series windrowers set the bar for operator comfort and control, making the long days in the field as productive as possible. The Case IH cabs provide superior visibility, while the cab suspension softens the ride in rough fields. All models are built guidance ready and may be ordered with full auto guidance direct from the factory for additional operator comfort. The 3-speed transmission option provides a 24-mile-per-hour road speed to make moving from farm to field fast and efficient. Six-cylinder models may be equipped with a triple windrow attachment to merge 2 or 3 swaths. This eliminates the need to rake or merge with other implements, saving time, fuel, and expense. Replacing dull or damaged knives on this Case IH RD 163 rotary disc head is a snap with a patented quick change knife system. Change or flip knives in seconds instead of minutes. RD3 headers are available with steel or rubber rolls and cutting widths of 16 or 19 feet. The fully modular cutter bar is shock hub protected and backed by a 3-year cutter bar warranty. For more information on the Case IH WD4 Series windrowers, contact your local dealer or visit caseih.com.
And that's just one of the 100 videos available from this year's Farm Progress Show. Be sure to check them all out at farmprogressshow.com. Max?
You know what happens next weekend on this show?
I don't.
It's our special Christmas visit. Sources tell me you had an exclusive interview with one of Santa's helpers.
I did. I was able to put a direct line in to the big guy at the North Pole, so stay tuned.
Well, you need help with that, I'm sure.
Always.
We'll see you next week here. Thanks for joining us. So long, everyone.
Closed captioning for This Week in Agribusiness is brought to you by Kubota. Shape your world. This Week in Agribusiness has been brought to you by Pioneer and ADM. This Week in Agribusiness is produced by OMAX Communications in association with 22 Creative Group. We invite you to visit us online at agbizweek.com.